Hello, hello! I cannot wait to begin. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you can learn some fun things. I'm going to give us a couple minutes before I actually start, but I wanted to share with you some of the fun things that I've been working on. And as I am getting ready, I will share with you some of the, here are the cards that I've made from playing with my Brushos and my Stencils, so you can kind of see. Anyways, lots of fun times. If you're watching this not a live version, I will be starting in about 3 minutes, so you can fast forward a little bit if you wanted to. But while I am getting things started, I actually got 2 new colors and I haven't played with them yet, so I was going to play with those real quick. I got a rose red, which I haven't used, don't know what it looks like, and gray, and I'm curious if the rose red is a bit more pink than alizarin crimson, which alizarin crimson is such a beautiful pink. Usually it's a warm, anyways, I just really love alizarin crimson, but I think I'm really gonna like the red one too. I'm just poking holes with this thing. And then I got gray. I got black and I got dark brown, but I don't have gray, so I thought when I was making the order for Dick Blick, getting some more watercolor paper, I thought, oh, I'll just add a couple more to my list of colors, so there we go. But I figured I can put some pigment down and see what comes, and I had some scrap paper. And I really like these for bookmarks. I don't know, maybe you guys use bookmarks or use scrap pieces of watercolor paper for bookmarks. They make really nice bookmarks. Anyways, I'm just going to play around with, and then here is, I like to play around with my colors because I think the more I can play around, the more I can find ways to use them. My newest color I got was sea green, and I like it. Hey, Jen, it's so good to see you. Hey, Debbie, how are you? Debbie, where are you from? That might have had Brusho on it before, but that's okay. I'm still gonna play with this. Ooh, this is the rose red. I haven't played with it yet. It's brand new, and I really like that. I'm curious what the difference is between the two. I always have to, ooh, see that? That's almost reminds me of like that scarlet red. So that was a alizarin. This is my new rose red. What's the brilliant red look next to it? Oh, I see, how pretty. Sometimes it takes me a while to see the difference between the two colors until it dries, but let's see what scarlet red looks like next to the, I don't know. Sometimes it takes a little while to, I always forget that scarlet red is almost like an orange color. I like it. So anyways, that's the rose red. Here, I'll put some more rose red on so you can see the difference. Anyways, I'm just playing with my new colors before people show up. Anyways, we'll do something with this later. I'll add some more of that really pretty pink to the already red that we have there. Oh my gosh, there's some purple in this alizarin crimson. I did not notice that. Okay. Alright, so a lot of times when I'm playing with Brusho, I like to just, like we do What Is It Wednesday, sprinkle things on the paper and then come up with a plan afterwards. I like to do that with my card backgrounds. And since this is probably going to be more heavily on greeting cards than on an actual painting. I thought I would play. All right, and then I don't know who has gray. Does anyone have gray? I don't, and I'm just now playing with it. I just poked my holes, and now I'm curious. Oh my gosh, look at that! It has this like beautiful granite blue. I see some orange to it. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to play with that. Now it makes me wonder what the difference is with black. I have to play, you guys. Oh, there's black. Oh, I see. Look at that. The black versus the gray are completely different. That's black. That's gray. The black looks brown almost to the gray. And then here's what dark brown looks like. Oh my gosh, how fun. Or dark brown does look much browner, almost like an orange and a turquoise. Okay, I'm gonna let that sit too. We'll see. That might be a fun. I'll find something fun to do with that with the stencils. Okay, so I started my demo already. I'm playing with my colors, and that's half the that's the fun part of playing with Brushos and Stencils, is getting a fun background. And my goodness sakes, that's so pretty. All the different colors, from most of it is gray, black, and brown. I cannot believe I haven't bought in gray yet. I'm glad I did. Okay, let me share with you some of my fun techniques that I like to play with Brushos. All right, so these two I'm going to let dry. I'm going to clean my board. If you have questions, I can see them now. I don't know what happened last week when I couldn't see them. So, there's my mouse pad. Hello, hello. Oh, Debbie, you have gray. Do you like them? Do you like gray? Yeah, Jen, I love that you're using doing the sample cards, because it really helped me like learn the different color properties. Okay, first off, I want to share stencils. I like the plastic stencils a bit better than you can get them in like with cardstock stencils. I don't mind the cardstock stencils, but I really like the plastic stencils. Yeah, I agree. Let me share with you one of my favorite ways to just make a quick background card. And the background that I'm gonna show you is actually this one and this one, this green card. They're both from this stencil right here, and you can kind of see the outline. You can kind of see that outline right there. It's the outline right there. It is by far one of my favorite techniques. It always comes out just spot on. So I'm going to share with you how I do that, and it's so easy that I think once you see how easy it is, you're going to want to do it, hopefully. So I'm going to, I like to use 140-pound paper. I'm just using some paper that I've cut down to like an A2 size. So most envelopes that you would get are an A2 size, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So that's where I'm at. I have little kids at home, and sometimes they like to peek in and see what I'm doing. So I just closed my door. Thank you for bearing with me. Okay, since I already have my reds out, I'll do this color. I did actually sandstone and alizarin crimson, but instead of alizarin, I think I'll try rose red, since it's a new color that I have and I really want to get to know it a little bit more. I will sometimes spray the bottom just so my paper doesn't move around too much. And then wet on wet, right? I'm just spraying. I'm gonna add Brusho pretty fast. I sprayed a lot of Brusho. I've sprayed a lot of water. I don't need that much water. I'd rather start with less water than too much, because I don't really want it to go everywhere yet. I will, but not yet. All right. All right, and then sometimes what I'm looking for is an even coat, but I want that texture, so I'm playing around. I think half the battle with Brusho is playing. When you can finally just say, it's just paper and I'm going to play, that's when you get really beautiful results. Okay, now I know sandstone is what I like to call a bossy pigment, meaning it will just, like, wherever it goes, watch, it's going to whoosh away the pigment. Like right here, now that red is going away, so I can add that later because I know it's going to move the red rose, because that's just what sandstone does. Now I'm adding some of that beautiful warmth. I would say red rose has a little bit of it's a warm color. I did not expect it to be as warm as it is. I was thinking it was going to be a cooler red. It's a warmer red. I like it. Okay, so now that it's wet, you can see that it is pretty, it's wet, right? It's really, see, that's what I mean by the sandstone. It like bosses the water and the other pigment away, and you're left with that. But I really like that. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to push this down, and I'm going to let it dry just like that. I'm not going to move it. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to let it dry. In about 20 minutes, when I'm done with this, right before I am done, I'm going to take it off, and you're going to see that what happens is the pigment will pool in under the plastic, and so you're left with this beautiful design. Now what I could do right now is just wipe up some of the extra pigment that is already on, and that's gonna help lighten that up. I love stencils like this because it's so intricate, and the person you're giving the card to will, usually I send them to other artists or friends that know that I'm creative, and they'll ask, how did you do that? And usually I tell them. So this is how that works. I'll be right back with a new paper, or a new, here. Okay, so that is one way to do that. Here is, I have this Brusho paper already done. I used 3 different yellows. I used New Gamboge and lemon, and then actually I think I added yellow ochre. This is the darker yellow is the yellow ochre, and I really like that. I love how bright it is. Sometimes if the watercolor paper curls up a little bit, I bend it back into shape, but it shouldn't matter too much. What I like to do is I like to find stencils that have, for this technique, not a lot of detail. For the other technique that I just showed you, something that has a lot of detail is perfect, but for this one, I'm not a fan of. Now, you can do this with just white paper, but I have found that it's really fun to do it with paper that you've already put Brusho on. And again, I'm just going to spray. And I don't know if I want the whole thing, so I'm just going to show you how I would do maybe half of it, like 3/4 of it. So I'm just going to spray. Now I just activated the yellow, so you got to remember, like, I always like to think that it's analogous colors, so I'm still going to go in with, we'll try our red rose again since I'm still playing with it. I'll put a little bit of that on, and then I'll go in with alizarin crimson, because I know alizarin crimson is really, really pretty with this yellow. And I might be, and I tap lightly, always tap lightly, and instead of spraying, which I wanted to, I'm going to use my wet towel, paper towel, because I really don't want it to look messy. And I can go in and just add the red in without spraying, and that usually gives a nicer look to it. And then we can lift up, and I got this really beautiful background, and it is, and then to clean it, I just use water, wipe it off, and then I'm on my way. Now what I could do with the extra, I could stamp a little bit, but I'm not going to because I really like it how it is, and I have found through trial and error that the less you play with the stencils, the better it's going to look, and the more authentic or fresh it's going to look. So there is that. Now you could do that with just plain white paper, but I really like this idea of the yellow turning into flowers, and so that's what I chose to do. Lots of good stencils for that. Let me, yeah, I don't actually have an example for that. I do. Here's another example of what I did. So this, I used moss green, and then I took one of my stencils. It's a Tim Holtz stencil, and I actually didn't bring it with me. I can find it for you later if you're really wanting to know. But it was a wildflower stencil. This was the negative space. And so all I did was I took black Brusho and did the same thing to it. Except for instead of using a paper towel, I brushed it on. So, and I thought this would be a nice bookmark or an art journaling piece. And I think I'm going to save this as an art journaling piece and use it in an art journal. So lots of choices, but I really love this. I love how the colors blend together. And that's another way to really add to your Brusho toolbox. Okay. So, oh, Deb, I'm sorry, Debbie, I didn't answer your question. So, plastic stencils, you can find them at any craft store. Sometimes art supply stores will have generic stencils. The cute stencils, like the one I have, I actually got from Tailored Expressions. This is a Tailored Expression stencil. But Stencil Girl has some. Tim Holtz has a bunch. Most scrapbooking or stamp stores will have lots of different stencils. They are marketed, I think, more for the mixed media artists and scrapbookers and card makers. Does that answer your question, Deb? Thanks for thanks for asking. I get caught up in demoing and not always looking at my comments. But that's where I get my stencils. Online is a good place too. Scrapbook.com would have some. And right now, Tailored Expressions, if you spend $100, you get a free stencil from them. But they have stamps and dies and all that fun stuff. Yeah. Anyways, okay. Let's, I'm going to share with you another way that I like to use stencils. I used Persian blue and then violet, and I just love those colors together. Isn't that fun? So I thought, what better than a mermaid scale? And so for this one, I really like to use a magic eraser. I have tried bleach, and every time I try bleach with a stencil, this was with a star stencil, and you can kind of see the stars, but it's just not, it's just messy, and I don't know if I love it. I don't really love this. So I don't always use bleach. This pen has a whole bunch of bleach in it. Anyways, I like to use a magic eraser, and I have my magic eraser right here, and let me show you. I get it wet, and I had blue last time too. I think the darker the pigment, the better this technique works. So we had like a darker green, and I'll show you some other, I'll show you with the olive green that I put on not too long ago. But what I'm thinking is I don't want to just do the whole thing, because I'm probably going to want to put like a sentiment and maybe something else on here. So I really want to just let it kind of be. Let me see if I can't find you. I had a little mermaid card around here somewhere, but I don't know where it went. But if I find it, I'll show you, because that's kind of the look I'm going for. I'm lightly taking away pigment. And I think I have this nice little corner here, so I'm going to do a nice little corner here too. I just love this stencil. And again, this is a Tailored Expression stencil. I'm not, this is, the number is TESN29. And you can tell that it kind of worked. So what I would say is troubleshooting, I didn't add enough pigment. So what I could do is go back in and add a darker pigment, and then you would see it. I do see a faint line, but I didn't use enough. But I'll show you right here. This is a really dark spot. That's probably where I should have started. And lightly, because I don't want to hurt my paper. And then you can see that, you can see where the stencil left that off that. Yeah, I'm just gonna, yeah. So it's a trial and error. Sometimes I think, oh, that's a dark enough blue and it's totally gonna work, and it did not. So what I could do is go back, add more pigment, let it dry, and take it away. But I got one more to show you. Maybe this one will be my a better one to try. It's always hard to tell sometimes. And we'll try with this one too, because that one's pretty dark. There's the stencil I was talking about with the green, and then add the dark, and I'll show you that in just a second as well. But we'll still go with the darker. We'll still try and take away pigment. Okay, got my eraser, my magic eraser. It's wet, ready to go. And for me, I have a lot of water. And I'm gonna go right here. I can always already see a whole bunch of water. Okay. And we'll do one right here too. Okay. There, that works a bit better. You can see where I lifted off the pigment. You can see that texture. Isn't that fun? So, I mean, it's a subtle look, but it is really fun. Now, when this is dry, I'll go back in and I'll add the black to that, and that'll even add more contrast and more texture to the card panel. All right, let's do this one. And to take away the pigment, you're gonna at least want 140 pound. No doubt about that. You don't want your paper to pill. And what I don't want to do is I don't want a whole, like, I don't want this to be completely filled with this. I want it to look very textured, like almost it was accidental that it happened. There's a big blob. You can kind of see where it's right there. But I'll add some extra fun stuff to this too. I was gonna make both of these darker. Alright, so let's add, we still have these, and I like that. And since I have a whole lot of, since my first plan didn't work, and I used some thicker paper, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna add some more. But this time, I'm gonna add it with my brush. And I have, just using a round, medium-sized brush, nothing special. I'm tapping some violet on to my work surface, or my palette. And I'm going to add, and I want my brush to be not juicy, I want it to be damp. And I don't think I got enough water on it. So I blot it, And then I'll check it with my finger, and it does not look like it's very wet, so it's not. Which is exactly what I wanted. Now I can just almost paint. And what I like about this is I can say I don't want it to lot. If I want it to be a little bit lighter, I can. My plan is to just give it some subtle look to it. Again, I don't want it to look like I plastered on the stencil. And then I'll clean this off both sides, and I'll come down here. That way it brings balance to my card. The hardest part about this is getting the water to pigment ratio, and it does take a little bit of practice. And the best thing I can say is you want it to be a damp brush, but when you feel like it's getting too dry, you got to add more water. And I'm actually going to go way up, almost to the center of the card, because I can. Alright, there. And that gives it some texture. It's definitely, you can see a little bit here from where I've taken it off, and here where I've added some. And now maybe, because I can't leave well enough alone, I'm going to add my darker blue. And I'm going to do the same on this corner. Woo, that is some dark Persian blue right there. And now this brush right now that I'm using is a little bit more juicier, so I have to be kind of careful. I can already tell that it's bleeding, which wasn't necessarily, I don't really mind in the corner, but when I get down here, I don't want it to bleed as much. I want it to be a bit more crisper. If we have other people watching, I'd love to know where you guys are from, as I'm not paying attention because I'm looking at the comments. Okay, let's see. Magic. And again, my brush was really juicy right there, so there's the difference between a drier brush and a juicy brush. You can see the difference. This is a bit more clean, and that's a little bit more messy, but it's a card front, and chances are you're going to add a sentiment and maybe like a stamp, a die that would pop up for a mermaid, or you know, whatever. But I do like that. I think that my work is never done, and I can add just a little bit of, this is iridescent flash, and it comes out pretty fast. Oh, nope. I didn't actually. And then I'll spray it to set it. And I'm just putting my finger in and then flicking some of that on. That's going to give it a really pretty look. I feel like the iridescent flash is almost glitter. I just love it. It's one of my favorites. Okay, I'm going to let that dry. So there was that card panel. Let me share with you. I think this one is dry enough for me to use the stencil for the flower. And if you get one stencil, this stencil has been out for a while, and it's probably my most well-loved stencil. You can tell that it has taken a beating, but it's my favorite. So you see this magic eraser stuff that I've used, and you can really tell over here, like once it dries, you can really see the difference. When it's still wet, you can't always tell, but you can see that really fun texture. But to add a little bit more texture, you can. Now, if you do not feel confident in your stencil ability, you can always tape it down. And I just have some washi tape, And I would tape down the paper first. I feel like I've done this enough, so I don't always tape down my paper. But if you are feeling like, oh, I really don't want to mess this up, just tape it down. And then that way you're not worried about it moving around or, you know, whatever. So tape the paper down, then tape the stencil on top of your paper. Now you're set. Okay, I'm going to use my green, because my green my dark brown, because my dark brown has really pretty colors to go with it. I'm going to take my brush, and again, I want it to be pretty dry, and that's too dry. Okay. Now when I did the other one, I used a big flat brush, and so it took me like a minute to do. For this, I'm taking a little bit more time with a smaller brush, which I don't think there's anything wrong with. So use what you got is really what I'm trying to say. Who makes cards? Ooh, who would like to make more greeting cards if they had time or knew how to? I'd love to know in the comments. I'm getting this too wet, and I know that is not going to end well. But that's okay, because that was just a stem. Maybe it was in the background. We'll just make that part of the background. It'll be okay. Again, who knows? This is going to be a card panel or an art journaling piece. I really like using stencils because it gives it a unique look. I have a class, the Vibrant Greeting Cards, on the Fine Art Cafe Academy, and I go through other ways to use stencils other than this. This is a fun way, but I actually bring in gesso and gel medium and glitter and show you how I use those things on top of Brusho. And I will say that this is a process and it takes time. It's not a fast, I mean, enjoy the process, right? Don't speed it up if you don't have to. Okay, now to reveal the stenciling. There, and now I'll let it dry and it'll just look wonderful. So there is that one. Okay. Oops. And sometimes you have to, this is washi tape. I did not use artist's tape. And sometimes I forget that I have to be a little bit more gentle with washi tape than with, but I think nothing that glue or a cutting board won't change. Now, if I wanted to, I'll let this dry, and if I wanted to form the shapes a bit more, I could take like a micron pen and outline it just a little bit more. But I'm really enjoying the negative space here that we took out, right up here too, along with that. But I think putting a pen to the stencil will really help just make it better. Anyways, and I will cut that down this way and still make a card out of it. Let's see, we have one more card panel. Was there any questions or anything that you had wanted to know that I haven't touched yet on? There's a lot of different ways to use stencils. Yeah, I think it would be fun to have a challenge to use stencils. I'll have to think of something. Yeah, I agree, Jan. Oh, Debbie, I love landscapes and flower cards. They make me so happy. Let's use that. I'm going to use that flower stencil again if I can find it. I keep putting things not in the right spot and then I can't remember where I put the stencil. But if I can find my flower stencil again, I will use that. If not, I will find a different stencil to use. While I'm doing that, let's see if this is about done. I'm going to touch it. I think it is. Sometimes I can also tell if I just pick the corner up and it doesn't look like it's quite dry yet. And you want it to be completely dry. I'm afraid if I pick it up, I'll be all right. Look at that. There you go. And it's going to dry like that and it's going to look phenomenal. Isn't that a fun technique? I love it. So that is going to be one fun card. And you can do that with like Christmas stencils, or you can do that with like, I have a bunch of fall stencils as well, and I think that would look neat. There's so many fun ways to use it. Let's, I've already used that one. I don't want to use that one one more time. I could. Let me get a different. This one is called Majestic, and I really like it. It has this really fun, it's a really fun geometric stencil, and I do like geometric stencils because you can do a lot of fun things with it. Now for this one, I'm going to add some red, and I'm just going to, like, I call this like a waterfall stencil, where it's big at the top or the bottom and then it gets smaller. And so I thought this is pretty small, but I think it'll work for what I want to do. And I have all these reds. I'll use Brilliant Red for this one. What I want to do is I'm going to spray a little bit here, and then I'm just going to add the Brusho. And then I'm going to take a clean paper towel and almost crumple it up in my hand and do that. And I'm going to go to the next space right over here, spray that again, and you guessed it, put some more pigment on. Now if you're using not watercolor paper, cardstock may work. They make a stencil spray called Pixie Spray, and there's that. I really like that texture. Anyways, the Pixie Spray will hold your stencil down, but your paper has to be completely flat. My paper is not flat, as you can see, so I have to use my hands, which I'm okay with. And I picked it up too soon, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I am going to do the middle. Just make it look like a waterfall. Kind of get the idea. So with Brusho, I have found very much that less is more when it comes to adding the pigment. And I'm wondering that since I sprayed it, if the yellow is going to come up a little bit. But there. And then I can add some fun little, so that's my background. Now I can add, like, I'll show you my cards so you can see where I started building. There's that mermaid card. So I took a stencil, I think it was called Bubbles, but you could type in like bubble stencils or circle stencils and come up with probably 20 different stencils that will look like bubbles. I magic erasered it so you can see all the different little bubbles. Let me show you that stencil so you get an idea. Here's the stencil. And I just took my magic eraser. I used violet, Persian blue, so same thing. I just added more pigment apparently. And I think a little bit of seafoam green right here, and lift it up, and I got that beautiful background look. It is very subtle, but I think it adds a lot to the card. And then I had this stamp that I stamped out, cut it out, and then a sentiment. So it really didn't take me too long to make, and I'll make, you know, 4 or 5 of these. I'll actually make 10 of these, let's be serious. I'll make like 10 of these card panels, and then in one afternoon, and then the next afternoon I'll add my my extra stuff to the cards, and then we can make a card pretty fast. So there's that one. With the so now this is really pretty much dry. So with this, these are about the same card. This one actually, I mean, it's just, it turns out different every single time, and I can't, it's just a fun technique. You just put Brusho on, put the stencil on, let it dry, pick it up, and you get this really fun look. I just added a die cut here, and then I had a sentiment stamp that I just stamped on here, and I made a really nice simple card, which I love. I think I know exactly who I'm sending this to. When I make cards, I always have somebody in mind, usually. And this was the same thing, but instead I used a sentiment strip for this. And these, the stencil let it dry technique works almost 9 times out of 10. And then I had that same majestic stencil for here, and I just took a magic eraser and I took off the white. And again, this was Persian blue, so I don't know why my Persian blue on my scalloped mermaid card did not go, but that's okay. I still love the texture. It's still really pretty. And then I just added a oval with a sentiment stamped, and I think this will make for a really pretty Christmas card. I'm always thinking about Christmas cards at this point in the year, because Christmas is going to be here before I know it, and if I'm not ready, I'll not have any Christmas cards ready, and I'll be wishing I had. Another thing that this is another stencil. This is all created with stencils, and I thought I would show you, because sometimes it's hard to get an idea of, if you don't have stamps or you don't have die cuts, you can buy stencils that have words on them. Michael's, I've seen them a lot in the home. Oh, like Michael's has a stencil section, and they'll have words on the stencil. This one was from Simple Stories, and it's about, you know, Disney World. But I made this for my scrapbook when we went to Disney World. Anyways, I'll put it in the scrapbook, and it's gonna just make the pages like even better. But the stencil, this is one stencil, this is another stencil, the Persian blue right here is the majestic. You can kind of see where that stencil came from, and then these dots were from the bubble. And so you can combine a whole bunch of stencils and make a really fun piece. I say play along and see what happens, and if it doesn't work, then you learn something and you'll try again, right? Like that's how my process has been, is trial and error. So anyways, if you have questions, let me know. It's so good to see you guys. I hope that this gives a new spin on how to use your Brushos. I think stencils run anywhere from like $4 to $6. I have, Hobby Lobby has a section in the kids section, kid stencils, and I am not above buying kid stencils because they're like $2, and it's the same material, just different images. But if the image works, then that's what counts. So anyways, if you have questions, let me know. I'd love to hear them. I'm gonna scroll through the comments real quick before I take off, so I'm not missing something. But if you have anything, I'd love to know. It's so nice to see you, all of you. Marianne, I'm glad you made it. Susan, I love that you're, thanks for joining us from Canada. I hope it wasn't too, I wonder what time it is what I'm asking. But hopefully you weren't staying. I know it's not that late in the afternoon, but it's fun to see you guys. I'm so happy to see you guys. This is so neat to see everybody. Yeah, go to Michael's, Debbie, and try not to, like, my rule of thought for Stencils is if a stencil is $7, it has to be something that I love. Because normally I can find stencils for a little less than $7. And I also like to think of stencils as, I'll be real quick, and anyways. I figured I'm here. I'll talk your ear off unless you say enough. This one is perfect for Christmas. I use this stencil every time I make Christmas cards. But I also like it because I can use it for like any kind of floral, like if I just need a little bit of texture and I need it to look like florage, yeah, foliage, there we go, that's the word I was looking for. Then I would be able to use that. So that one's a good one. Geometric ones are sometimes my favorite too. Here's a geometric one. Tim Holtz, you can buy Tim Holtz ones they come in packs of 4, and so like I got 2 packs of, these are smaller stencils, so I like them for smaller details, which is perfect for cards if you're only going to do a little bit. But I like, this one's one of my favorites. It's a geometric square, and I've done a lot with those. So I would, if you're going to start off with, get one that's geometric, one that's more foliage. Here's another one. I use that a lot for bubbles as well. Yeah, it just depends on my mood, and I know that sounds horrible, but my mood dictates a lot of my creativity. I do like, sometimes I think if stencils, I don't always look at stencils as the full piece, right? There's only a couple stencils that I have that really tell a story, and what I mean is this one tells a story. I know that when I use this one, it's telling a story of flowers, right? This one could be used for hearts. It could be used for texture, like I did in this one, right? Just to add some texture. So there's a lot of, so I like to buy stencils that are open-ended unless it tells a story like that. It just depends on my stencil collection and what's available at the time. But if you don't have a Michael's or a Hobby Lobby, scrapbook.com has a bunch of stencils. Other stencil brands that I recommend are the Stencil Gal, and Tailored Expressions has a bunch of stencils. Concord and Ninth has some that I like, but a lot of times it's scouting out the scrap store at the stencil section and finding some that you will like. Now you can use the paper kind, you just have to be a bit more delicate because it's thick cardstock paper. It's not as thick as chipboard, but it's thicker than cardstock, and I'm not quite sure what the material is, but they work. I'll show you one of the cardstock stencils. You guys, I might have a stencil problem. I use gesso sometimes, but this is the cardstock stencil, and I don't mind them. They're perfect for dry, for that dry brush technique that I showed you, like with this card. And you can kind of see it's drying now, so I can add in my lines, and I probably will. Um, but yeah, you just want to be careful. If you spray it, let it dry really good so it'll stay longer. But once you put gesso on your stencil, they last a little bit longer. So, and you can tell that I have this really eccentric collection of stencils. That one's a fun one. I love the beehives, especially during summertime. That's no, sorry, beehives. I use them for beehives, octagons. I really like that one too. That one's a fun one. So anyways, you can use paper stencils. They're a little bit cheaper, but they're not going to last as long either. But depending on what you're going to do with it, it might be just fine. So anyways, oh, Debbie, have you looked at the Spirit of the Brush book yet? Because it is one of my favorites that I go to all the time. I'm reading your comments, and I have made my own hot glue stencils too. Let me show you. Oh, maybe I couldn't find the right kind of. There's another stencil. Like Deb was saying, she uses hot glue. So you take parchment paper, and the parchment paper is pretty see-through, and if you have a pattern, you can put your pattern down, put the parchment paper over the printed pattern, and then just use it to hot glue. The Frugal Crafter has a great tutorial on that. And that's what I did with that one and this one. And I've made a couple other ones, but they're fun. It adds texture, and these actually hold up pretty well for considering. But yeah. I'm so glad you mentioned the hot glue. I was going to share that, and then I thought no one in their right mind is going to do hot glue stencils, but I have found my tribe truly, because I love hot glue stencils. And check out the Frugal Crafters DIY stencils, I think is what it's called. I'll try and find the link and send it to you guys. But lots of fun ways to use stencils and to add texture to your artwork, card panels. Yeah. Oh, well, enjoy that book, Debbie. I'd love to get your opinion on The Spirit of the Brush. It has helped me so much with using Brusho, because it's just such a neat way of painting. But anyways. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to end because my kiddos are probably going to need me in a little bit, and I have to clean up my mess. If you could only see how much stuff I have on my work surface, you would think it's a hot mess, but that's okay. Creativity is messy, and I'm happy to be creative. So keep creating. If you have questions, I would love to answer them, either on the, page Brusho Fun, or you can always just tag me, Lisa Christensen, on the group, and then ask me the question, and I'm happy to answer. Oh yeah, thanks, Debbie. I know, I feel like I am totally a creative person when it comes to my quirkiness with my DIY things, but you know, these work and I love them, and I'm grateful for Lindsay Ryrich is her name, the Frugal Crafter, for her excellent resources. So anyways, you're very welcome, Susan. We will talk to you soon. I could chat all day, but I probably shouldn't, because eventually my 6-year-old is going to come into my room and say, Mom! So anyways, we'll talk to you guys soon. Enjoy Brusho and all the creative opportunities it gives you. And we'll see you on the group. Thanks, Jan. Yes, I appreciate the repost. Absolutely. All right, bye for now. We'll see you later next week, I believe. We will have a new demo, but not from me, but I'm grateful for that. But check back in the Brusho Fun group, and we'll get more information on that for you. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.